This video follows the trip made in the motor yacht venture to Haida Gwaii, a group of islands previously known as the Queen Charlottes. We made our landfall at Queen Charlotte Village, and after attending a mandatory orientation course, went to Cumshaw Inlet and on to Scadans. The Haida were once the dominant tribe in the region. Their seafaring prowess in open canoes enabled them to raid villages on the mainland, bringing home booty and slaves to support their well-developed culture, earning them the title of Vikings of the Pacific Northwest. Their way of life came to an abrupt and tragic end in the 1800s, when most of the population were wiped out by smallpox and other diseases brought to the islands through contact with white traders. This was our first official site with a resident watchman, responsible for protecting the environment as well as acting as a guide. When we arrived, the beach bustled with activity, with Park Service landing craft and other boats landing supplies. Scadans had once been a prosperous village, but all that remained were the decaying remnants of toppled totem poles, which, by local custom, are left to be reabsorbed back into the natural environment. New growth has overrun the site, engulfing old beams and fallen poles. The watchman told us about last winter's blowdowns. The warning signs should be taken seriously. Low tide is a good time to keep an eye open for bears foraging along the shore. Our vigilance was rewarded. Our next stop was at Tanu, where we anchored within sight of the watchman's hut. Tommy ferried Louisa and myself ashore in our recently acquired small tender. On previous trips we had been frustrated by our inability to make beach landings, and we had added a smaller, flat-bottomed boat which could be stowed beneath the davit. Without it, getting ashore would have been next to impossible, because none of the sites had any form of dock or jetty. We were greeted here by Frank, the local watchman. He was living on this site for 1 month with his wife and 11-year-old daughter. Frank was of Haida ancestry and very informative. Along a trail bordered by white clamshells, he guided us through all that remained of this once prosperous village. House sites of the elite could be identified by sunken pits and fallen beams. Everything was covered in a rich green blanket of velvety moss, soft and springy to the touch. Frank took us to his house to meet his wife and daughter, who were weaving headbands made from the inner bark of the cedar. This time the anchor came up loaded with mud and shells. We moved the 9 miles to Windy Bay, where a hut, available as an emergency shelter, had been erected using traditional techniques. The watchman, Al, had turned 76 in March, but did not look his age, and took us on a hike through the forest. The forest was thick with moss. Ancient cedars crumbled back into the ground. A small herd of deer watched our progress. We were ferried back over the river where it joined the bay in a small skiff, using a system of ropes and pulleys.
Go ahead. Once the rope will throw you overboard. That's about all we're going to get. Place the load so Louisa can get out.
Before departing Queen Charlotte Village, we had arranged for a float plane to meet us at Hot Spring Island to take George back to Sandspit Airport. Deteriorating weather and poor visibility threatened this arrangement, but without a sat phone, we had no way to contact the pilot. To our relief, the plane appeared out of the gloom ahead of schedule. Float planes are the ubiquitous taxis of the Pacific Northwest.
George, somebody says. Somebody could.
Chris had been closely monitoring the weather, and with gales forecast from the southeast, we made the reluctant decision to take advantage of a short weather window and leave Haida Gwaii 3 days ahead of schedule. We timed our arrival in mainland waters to be during daylight, so we could spot the logs which tend to cluster along the tide line. We covered the 190 miles from our anchorage at Hot Spring Island to Port Hardy on Vancouver Island in 21 hours. Despite the continuing threat of gales, waters in the marina remained calm and reflective. Bald eagles were a common sight. Even juvenile birds have that savage look. And here, an adult bird looks affronted at the presence of a cheeky raven. In Johnson Strait, a small pod of Pacific white-sided dolphins provided us with the only sighting of marine mammals we saw during the whole trip. With time to spare due to our premature departure from Haida Gwaii, we dallied in quiet anchorages around Desolation Sound as we continued our way south.